So basically, I'm here to tell you about morality. What is moral philosophy? It's simply the search for the best way to live and the right principles for our actions. We use morality, the set of principles or rules that guide us in our actions, to act as we do and try to fulfill that moral philosophy. In deciding what we should or shouldn't do, you take into account what you ought to do. Through pursuing this, we come to one of the main ideas of this chapter, the good life. Not the One Republic song, but this phrase signifies what we should want to do and how we should live. We should pursue the good life. There are a couple of ideas of the good life discussed in this chapter, and that's what this video is going to serve to go over, as well as give a couple examples of. So, first off is hedonism. Hedonism is based off the idea that life is about getting as much pleasure out of it as you possibly can. Look at me here. For example, I have a ton of candy bars. These candy bars cause me pleasure. I love eating them. However, as I eat more and more and more, I run out of my pleasure, and if I want more, I need to work to get more. This itself is a contradiction, because if I go and work to buy more, then I'm working and not bringing pleasure upon myself. How is that the good life? Sometimes people can say that the pleasure is brought through the work, but hedonism is acting for the sake of pleasure instead of acting to actually receive the pleasure. An example of this is also working out. People work out, such as do push-ups and sit-ups, and get pleasure from these results. But the process itself is not pleasurable, and thus it's not hedonistic. Hedonism must be 100% pleasure. Next up is success. Some people think success is the ultimate good life. You can only achieve so much success though. Here's the example I came up with. So let's say I became king of Leslie. I started out as a mere peasant of Leslie, and then worked my way up through the ranks, and now I'm successful. I'm king of Leslie. But the problem with this idea of the good life is, well, as my friend King Louis said, I'm at the top, I have to stop, and that's what's bothering me. So there's only so high I can go. Also, I could fail. I need to consistently be successful to get this out of the good life. If I'm a failure, it could negate my idea of the good life. Next up is asceticism. Asceticism. For this one, think of Henry David Thoreau. He was an American poet who rejected materialism to better build his poetry and his art. This is something that could be brought on by religious association or choice, as in the case of Henry. Asceticism is simply a means of correctiveness as opposed to a final conclusion, which means that people may do this just because of the way society is formed. Going further into the chapter, the idea of freedom is brought on. So freedom, it's more of a means to access this good life, rather than a good life itself, because having it as a good life allows you to choose asceticism as your good life, to choose creativity as your good life, or really just about anything. So therefore, freedom is more of a means to access it rather than a quote-unquote good life itself. Moving forward, though, we do have the idea of power and creativity, which is also a viewpoint of the good life. It was believed that those who were the most creative and were actually the most powerful had the best access to the good life. Friedrich Nietzsche argues that all of the ideas of the good life are after this one ultimate idea of power. Therefore, asceticism, success, hedonism, all those things kind of fall under the pursuit towards this power, which he believes is best achieved through creativity. After that is religion. Religion as a good life is such because it means devoting one's whole life to the purpose of God. The argument made against that, however, is that if you are to truly appreciate God, you also have to give some of the attention to the world that He created around you, which takes away from the idea of God being said good life. Also, there's the possibility that some people are just making God their purpose out of fear, which once again goes against the idea of having a pure, quote-unquote, good life. Finally is the idea of happiness. Aristotle feels that happiness is the good life, stating that it isn't one thing that brings out the happiness, but a series of events. Aristotle felt happiness was also all of the good virtues and aspects that come associated with any form of the good life. Aristotle's happiness also was the idea of living an entire life of happiness, as opposed to us, where a happy life might be something that is one that we are satisfied with, whether we are indulged or pleasured the entire time. Finally, these are really all different ideas of what the good life is or can be. Each comes with its own flaw or downfall, but also with its benefits. So the purpose of this video was to give you guys some form of an example to sort of understand this and to give a visual aid to get a better idea of what all these different forms of the good life actually are. So just try your best to keep all these in mind while we move forward and we talk about what we do in class today. Thanks.